Hello, it's Willie from the Ozarks, and it is May the 25th lesson, which is lesson 145 in A Course in Miracles workbook for students. Lesson 145 is a review lesson. My mind holds only what I think with God. Beyond this world, there is a world I want. It is impossible to see two worlds. Okay? Uh, let's take a moment, and before we talk more about that lesson, let us go back to what we were looking at yesterday in the beginning of the text. And principle 22, I want to reread it again because it really goes with 23 really well, and I'd like to talk just a moment about it and then go ahead and read the next page. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think that you want to at least be able to know that you've gone through the workbook one time and you've reached enlightenment. That's what we hope for, and and in some ways you're already there. We just want you to be aware of it. So that's what we're working with. But these 50 or so principles, depending on how you count them, are what the book is based on. So let's at least look at the theory and the ideas without going into a lot of detail. A lot of these may be a little bit difficult to comprehend, and that's what the rest of the text is for, and the workbook, to help us to understand these very principles that the book's based on. You know, I reduced it down to there in the introduction, he even says, he explains, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Well, that's where we're headed. So we're developing this idea of that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. So in that spirit, these 50 so principles also are helping us to reach that place of unshakable peace. So in 22, which we read yesterday, and I'm sorry that took so long to upload. It just uploaded yesterday. It's just a couple hours before I'm doing the new one today. It took that many hours to upload. So I'm going to be trying to figure out what's going on and correct that. But until then, just make sure you do your lesson every day with your book. And if you don't have a book, let me know and I'll make sure you get one. If you're not able to get one yourself, I will get you a book. Just let me know. And really, I'd like to have just enough sustenance running through me that regardless of your language and of what you're, that we'll get you a book. If you're Spanish speaking, or we'll find a way to get these books to the people, and let people give a donation. And if you give enough donation for a couple books, well then we'll have someone we can give one to that doesn't have any money at all. So I'm not asking for money. I'm just saying if you need a book, we'll find a way to get you a book. Miracles are associated with fear only because of the fallacious belief that darkness can hide. Man believes that what he cannot see does not exist, and his physical eye cannot see in the dark. This is a very primitive solution and has led to a denial of the spiritual eye. The escape from darkness involves two stages. The first stage, the recognition that darkness cannot hide. This step usually entails fear. The second step, B, the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. This step brings release from fear. 23. Miracles rearrange perception and place the levels of perception in true perspective. This heals at all levels because sickness comes from confusing the levels. And that's where we stopped off yesterday, and I should have read the next paragraph. When you have become willing to hide nothing, now see, that refers back to our lesson prior, or the miracle principle 22. the recognition that darkness cannot hide, which this step usually entails fear. The recognition that there's nothing you want to hide, even if you could. And this step brings escape from fear. Now we're going to start off in this saying, when you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. Your commitment is not yet total, and that is why you still have more to learn than to teach, because our commitment's not total. We still have more to learn than to teach. So we want to have total commitment. When your equilibrium stabilizes, okay, that's when you're more committed, in other words, you will be able to teach as much as you learn, which will give you the proper balance. Meanwhile, remember that no effort is wasted. That's good to know. At least we're trying. For unless you remember this, you cannot avail yourself of my efforts, which are limitless. So we have to put our little effort out, and it's met with his limitless strength. Only eternity is real. Remember I said nothing real can be threatened? Well, only eternity is real. Why not use the illusion of time constructively? Okay, makes sense. That was kind of like the other day I said, if you're going to have a dream, might as well have a happy one. Okay, that's using time constructively. But we want to wake up from the dream, though. Paragraph 24, or Miracle Principle 24. Miracles enable man to heal the sick and raise the dead because he made sickness and death himself and can abolish both. You are a miracle, capable of creating in the likeness of your Creator. Everything else is only your own nightmare and does not exist. Wow, wouldn't that be nice if we really believed it? That was our nightmare and we could wake up from it? I had a little trying experience myself earlier today. And, the whole time I was going through it, I was saying, this is an illusion. I don't need to be upset by anything. And recognizing it was my own nightmare and that I had control over it gave me a little sense I didn't go, as my friend Ron used to say, to hell in the handbasket. Ron Payne. Anyway, so I didn't go all the way to hell, I guess, but I recognize that I have a choice of being happy or not, to enter the kingdom of heaven or staying outside the gate. Okay, so anyway, you are a miracle capable of creating in the likeness of your Creator. Everything else is only your own nightmare and does not exist. Only the creations of light are real. 25. Miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which, when completed, is the atonement. An interlocking chain of forgiveness is another name for the at-one-ment or the atonement. This process works all the time and in all dimensions of time. I am in charge of the process of at-one-ment or atonement, which I undertook to begin. When you offer a miracle unto any of my brothers, you do it unto yourself and me. The reason you come before me is that I do not need miracles for my own atonement, but I stand at the end in case you fail temporarily. The purpose of my part in the atonement is the canceling out of all lacks of love which men could not otherwise correct. The word sin should be changed to lacks of love. Okay, so he wants us to not use the word sin, but rather, hey, brother, you're making a lack of love. Hey, brother, you're making a sin. It's a little less. Well, look at why he says that. The word sin should be changed to lack of love, because sin is a man-made word with threat connotations, which he made up himself. No real threat is involved anywhere. Nothing is gained by frightening yourself, and it is very destructive to do so. So instead of thinking you're a terribly bad sinner, think of yourself as someone that's learning to love. You're remembering to love. And yeah, you have some lacks of doing so. But what child doesn't fall when it's learning to walk? So be heartened. Paragraph 26, or I guess it'd be miracle principle number 26. Miracles represent freedom from fear. Atoning really means undoing. The undoing of fear is an essential part of the atonement value of miracles. So he's saying that atoning really means undoing. And the undoing of fear is an essential part of the atonement value of miracles. The purpose of the atonement is to restore everything to you, or rather to restore it to your awareness. You were given everything when you were created, just as everyone was. When you've been restored to the recognition of your original state, you naturally become part of the atonement yourself. As you share my inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and others, you must join the great crusade to correct it. The slogan for the crusade is listen, learn, and do. That's the slogan of the crusade. Listen, learn, and do. Listen to my voice, learn to undo error, and do something to correct it. The first two are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. So we have work to do. The power to work miracles belongs to you. I will provide the opportunities to do them. But you must be ready and willing, since you are already able. Doing them will bring conviction in the ability, since conviction really comes through accomplishment. So as we do miracles, we become more convicted that we can do miracles. The ability is the potential. The achievement is the expression. And the atonement is the purpose. Okay, so we'll be ready for lesson 27 when we get back later. All right, so let's go back to our review lesson for today, and let's talk just a moment about yesterday's too. Before we do that, yesterday's. My mind holds only what I think with God. There is no love but God's. The world I see has nothing that I want. Now, we don't want to get depressed on that one. He said that, and it's because of our next lesson, that the world I see holds nothing that I want. Maybe I focused on that so much that I got myself kind of worked up into depression, because he told us that if we stayed in the world I see holds nothing that I want and didn't go on from there to the next lesson, that we could become depressed. And so because of the next lesson, which is certainly a continuation, which is today's, beyond this world there is a world I want. Beyond this world there is a world I want. And it is impossible to see two worlds. I might have been looking at the world I didn't want too much yesterday and got me kind of discouraged during the night. So anyway, I'm saying all this because I don't want you all to fall into the same little traps. And it probably never happened, but it could. So just be aware that we're passing through this idea that the world I see holds nothing that I want, because beyond this world there is a world I want. Hey, I wanted to show you this. This is some kale that I grew. I showed you the little babies before I planted them. I've been eating out of this for those things that I planted. I've been eating out of it. And I just wanted to show you something I do. I really like this method. What I do is I put them in a vase and bring them in and just put them on the table. and they'll last for a couple, 3 days just at room temperature in water, and then cook them as you want. Now, if you put it in the vase and put them in the refrigerator, they'll last for much, much longer, obviously, and even if you don't put them in water. But I like to keep them kind of plump. If I put them in the refrigerator without being in a bag or something, they tend to dry out. I hate to use plastic bags. I'm always looking for things that I can do things more in harmony with low-tech solutions. Not even having to use a refrigerator. And I was so excited once I realized that a few years ago that, well, I don't even have to have a refrigerator. I can bring my lettuce and stuff in, just put it in a vase. It looks nice on the table, and I just pull it out and steam it when I'm ready to eat it, or cut it up for a salad. Wash it off good. Okay, lesson 145. My mind holds only what I think with God. And after we've settled into that zone of realizing that we're a container for all of God's thoughts, my mind holds only what I think with God. From that vantage point, then we're to say to ourselves, beyond this world, there is a world I want. It is impossible to see two worlds. And we're going to let that take us into another place. All right? And like I said, and I was going to mention to you, if yesterday's lesson, there is no love but God's, that was a review for lesson 127. And I'll tell you something that helps me a lot is I'll go back and just read the first paragraph or two of a lesson, because he seems to really make a real clear emphasis on a lesson. And that particular one, there is no love but God's, is so foreign to the way that we think that I did want to just recap you on that paragraph or so. There is no love but God's. Perhaps you think that different kinds of love are possible. Perhaps you think there is a kind of love for this, a kind for that, a way of loving one, another way of loving still another. Love is one. It has no separate parts and no degrees, no kinds nor levels, no divergencies and no distinctions. It is like itself, unchanged throughout. It never alters with a person or a circumstance. It is the heart of God and also of his Son. You're the heart. Love is your heart. That's who you are. Love's meaning is obscure to anyone who thinks that love can change. Okay, so love is obscure to anyone who thinks that love can change. He does not see that changing love must be impossible, and thus he thinks that he can love at times and hate at other times. Well, we don't even have to go to the hate, just withhold, just with lack of love. You may not see it as overt attack or hate, but you probably notice that you're just not a wellspring of graciousness and happiness and optimism, of giving goodness, blessing, love. So if you're withholding that love, you've already gone to a place where love doesn't go. You're lacking love. All right, so I just wanted to mention that about yesterday's lesson, but let's stay with now today's lesson. I probably should have done all that before I went on, but they kind of follow each other. The world I see holds nothing that I want, which was a continuation of there is no love but God's. Well, now our continuation is beyond this world, there is a world I want. It is impossible to see two worlds. So let yourself be recharged with the realization that beyond this world there is a world I want, and see it. Don't get caught up in appearances. See that world. And remember, it's impossible to see two worlds. You might go back and read the first paragraph or two of that lesson, which was lesson 130. But until tomorrow, my mind holds only what I think with God. Beyond this world, there is a world I want. It is impossible to see two worlds.